May 2025, a lender reaches into the bank accounts of one of Britain's most celebrated AI companies and pulls out $37 million. What's left? About $5 million. And every cent of it is frozen, restricted, unusable. In May of 2025, Britain's most celebrated AI startup carries a $1.5 billion valuation. Microsoft is an investor.
None more so than Microsoft, which has invested billions in OpenAI.
Qatar's sovereign wealth fund has wired $250 million. EY has handed its founder the Entrepreneur of the Year trophy a year before the collapse. Then a lender sweeps $37 million from the company's accounts. It leaves $5. You've probably heard the reason why. 700 engineers in India, quietly pretending to be the AI. See, with something strange. That story is false. The Financial Times traced it to a single anonymous crypto post. Reporters who located the actual engineers found a real, working code generator. The documents allege something older, not a fake product, fabricated revenue, invoices circulating between two companies, money returning home, dressed as sales. A whistleblower filed the warning in an American court in 2019. Almost nobody read it. This is what everybody missed and what it cost. 2016, London. A founder launches a company called Engineer.ai and makes a promise that sounds impossible. You want an app? Don't hire a team. Don't write a line of code. Just describe it, and in a sentence, and an artificial intelligence named Natasha will build it for you. Natasha was the star of the pitch, the friendly face on the website, the reason investors leaned in. And for the next several years, that promise did something remarkable. It worked. Customers really did get apps. The money really did come in, which is exactly why nobody looked too hard at how. The money did not trickle in. It flooded. Over the next several years, the company raised around $445 million from backers you'd recognize. In May of 2023, Microsoft made a direct strategic investment. The amount was never disclosed, and it wired Natasha straight into Microsoft Teams in front of hundreds of millions of users. A Microsoft vice president, John Tinter, said it on the record. Builder.ai, he said, was, quote, creating an entirely new category that empowers everyone to be a developer. That same month, the Qatar Investment Authority, Qatar's sovereign wealth fund, led a round of $250 million. SoftBank's fund was in too. That round valued the company at $1.5 billion. A unicorn. The name had changed by then. Engineer.ai had become Builder.ai. But the promise was the same. Type a sentence, get software, backed now by some of the most sophisticated money on Earth. By 2023, the founder wasn't just a CEO, he'd handed himself a new title, Chief Wizard. And the establishment agreed. Late that year, EY named him its UK Entrepreneur of the Year, the overall winner, a trophy, a stage, a standing ovation. Roughly 18 months, that's all, before the allegations that would end all of it. Look at how fast this ran. Microsoft bought in that spring, Qatar's fund that same spring, The Crown that winter. And barely 2 years later, all of it would be gone. And here's the strange part. The strange part is not that the warning came late. The warning came early. It had been sitting in a public court file, free for anyone to read for 5 straight years. Nobody did. February 2019, Los Angeles. A man named Robert Holdheim, the company's own chief business officer, walks into a courthouse and files suit against his employer. His allegation, in the court record, that the company told investors its apps were 80% built by AI, while he claims the technology was, in his words, barely functional. He says he was fired for raising it. To be precise, this is an allegation in a complaint. Case number 219CV02187, and a court has adjudicated none of it. But it was filed, it was public, and it named the exact problem 6 years early. So, a whistleblower vindicated, or a fired executive with a grudge cashing out on the way down. The court never ruled. You can. 6 months later, it wasn't just a disgruntled executive. In August of 2019, the Wall Street Journal reported that the company, then Engineer.ai, exaggerated its AI capabilities and leaned heavily on human engineers. Read that carefully. This is the honest version of the fake AI story, and it's smaller and older than the viral one. Not 700 humans pretending to be the machine, a real product oversold. The marketing ran ahead of the technology. A newspaper of record said so on the record in 2019. 3 months after the journal piece, the company rebranded. Engineer.ai became Builder.ai. Fresh name, clean logo. And then, after the lawsuit, after the journal, after the warning went public, the big money arrived, the hundreds of millions. The sovereign wealth fund, the $1.5 billion valuation. The warning was public. Anyone could read it. The checks cleared anyway. So let me put the charge plainly. The due diligence wasn't missing. It was declined. So let's deal with the story you actually heard. When Builder.ai collapsed, the internet had a headline ready. 700 engineers in India had secretly been the AI, typing out apps by hand while pretending to be a machine. It went everywhere. Millions shared it. Here is where it came from. The Financial Times traced that viral claim to a single post on X by a self-described crypto enthusiast with no reporting history. One anonymous account. That's the source. That's the whole source. A tweet. So what was Natasha? Reporters who went and found the actual engineers and the domain analysts at the Pragmatic Engineer who interviewed former staff described something far more ordinary and far more real. Natasha was a genuine AI code generator, a software system, a Python orchestrator wired to the same large language models you know, GPT and Claude, built by a core team of about 15 engineers. Yes, the company also used a network of 500 to 1,000 outside developers, but that was an ordinary outsourcing network, a software agency. The kind every big shop uses, not a hidden human engine impersonating a robot. The tool was real, overhyped in the marketing, yes, but real. So the internet convicted this company of the wrong crime. And here's the part people miss when the myth falls apart. The truth isn't just different from the viral story. It's more dangerous. So, a fake AI is a great story. It's just not the one in the documents. The filings allege something older, something duller, something that has emptied far more bank accounts across history than any robot ever will. And it's the oldest trick in the book. Here's the trick, and a question the smart money would rather you skipped. The most sophisticated investors on Earth backed this company. So watch how simple it is, and decide for yourself. Were they fooled, or did the label pay them not to look? Node by node. There's a second company, an Indian firm called Verse Innovation, the parent of the app Daily Hunt. Bloomberg reported that documents showed Builder.ai and Verse sending invoices to each other. Builder bills, Verse. Verse bills, Builder. Round and round. The technical name is round tripping, and it sounds complicated, some do, so let me strip it. Company A sells something to a partner. The partner sells it right back. The same dollar makes the round trip, rebanning or layer. And now it shows up as 2 sales on 2 sets of books, even though nothing was really sold. Picture a bucket with a hole in the bottom. You keep pouring the same dollar in the top. It leaks out the bottom. You pour it back in, and every lap, you count it again, $1. made to look like 4. Bloomberg reported roughly $60 million of these circling invoices. Sales that were, in effect, your own money coming home wearing a name tag that says revenue. And when a real auditor finally added it all up, this is the number. The Financial Times reported that Builder.ai's 2024 revenue was restated. Restated. The accountant's word for the figure we told you was wrong. Here's the real one. From $220 million down to around 55. The year before, 180 million became about 45. Roughly 300% overstated. 3/4 of the revenue this company was valued on wasn't there. Now, the fairness part, because it matters, and because it's the law of this channel. Verse denies all of it, flatly. Its chief executive, Umang Bedi, called the accusations a, quote, absolutely baseless and false, and says the deals with Builder.ai were real, ordinary business. That denial belongs on the screen, not in a footnote. But follow what the restatement does, if the reporting holds. Evaluation is just a multiple laid on top of revenue. Investors didn't price a company. They priced a number. And Bloomberg and the FT reported that number was mostly air. Every wire, every trophy, every headline stacked on $220 million that an auditor would later call 55. And in the spring of 2025, someone finally checked. Every fraud, if the reporting is right, dies the same way, not from a headline, from an audit. So picture the one person, hundreds of millions of dollars of due diligence never sent into the room. An auditor. No title on a magazine cover, no trophy, just a spreadsheet and a job added up. By the spring of 2025, the numbers finally met that person. And the Financial Times reported that the audit told the lenders something blunt. The investors, it found, had been misled, which mattered immediately because of a single word in the loan paperwork, a covenant. The promise a borrower makes to a lender, the tripwire that says, if this turns out to be false, the loan comes due now. The tripwire had just been stepped on, May 2025. The lender, Viola Credit, moved first. It swept $37 million straight out of the company's accounts. What was left was about $5 million. And it was restricted, frozen, unusable. Now go back to the very first thing you saw in this video, the counter draining from $37 million to 5. You were watching the end. This is where it happened. Within weeks, Builder.ai, Microsoft-backed, Qatar-funded $1.5 billion Builder.ai, was insolvent. And notice who got out whole. The lender pulled its $37 million first. The employees and the server bills got the $5 million that was frozen. And insolvency doesn't stop at the company. It spreads. Employees across 5 countries, vendors, and the servers that ran Natasha in the first place. When Builder.ai filed for bankruptcy, court filings listed more than 200 creditors. Among them, Amazon owed around $85 million, and Microsoft owed around $30 million in unpaid cloud bills. Now hold that against something you heard at the start. 2 years earlier, a Microsoft vice president had called this company, quote, an entirely new category that empowers everyone to be a developer. Same partner, same company, now just an unpaid line on a bankruptcy filing. And then the government letters started to arrive. First, India. India's Enforcement Directorate, a federal financial crimes agency, alleges that the founder was a key beneficiary of funds rooted out of an Indian company, Videocon, through offshore entities, tied to a loan going back to 2011. Those are the agency's words, an allegation, and the founder's response belongs right beside them on the screen. He denies it. His lawyers say he is not named in any FR, any charge sheet, and that he is, in their words, only a witness, and that a summons was invalid. Nothing here has been proven. Nothing here has been charged. I am telling you what a government agency alleges, and what the man it named says back. Then America. August 2025, a man steps off a plane at a Dallas airport. He's the company's former chief financial officer, Andres Elizondo, and waiting for him at the gate is the FBI. They serve him a subpoena. Bloomberg reported that prosecutors in Manhattan, the Southern District of New York, had been requesting documents before the collapse and that a grand jury convened that September. The investigation, per Bloomberg, wire fraud, securities fraud, conspiracy. So let me say the sentence that has to be said, plainly, with no music under it. No charges have been filed. Not against the CFO, not against the founder. An investigation is not a verdict. A subpoena is not a conviction. And separately, in India, the co-founders were reported booked in 2 criminal cases. Reported, alleged, denied, unproven. So here's the honest question this whole thing leaves you with. If nobody has been convicted, if every serious claim is still an allegation, then what exactly did all of us just watch collapse? Before the systems read the people. When Builder.ai went down, it took jobs with it. Employees across 5 countries who built real products and were told right up to the end that the company was a rocket ship. Vendors who won't be paid, and investors, including a sovereign wealth fund that wired $250 million of Qatar's money, who priced a company off $220 million of revenue that an auditor would later call around 55. Nobody got a robot pretending to be human. What people got was a bill. So, the wrong crime. Let's answer it properly. The scandal was never 700 humans in a robot costume. The scandal is quieter, and it's structural. We are living through a boom where the market pays a company more to look like an artificial intelligence company than to be a merely good software company. Same code, same customers. Add the label AI, and the multiple, the valuation, reprices upward. And once a label is worth that much, the incentive to overstate stops being about one person's character. It becomes gravity. You overstate in the marketing, 80% built by AI. And if the filings are right, you overstate in the revenue, invoices circling with verse. Same pressure. 2 places. So let me be careful here, because it matters. Nobody in this story is just a victim. And nobody here is the cartoon villain either. Microsoft didn't build the fraud, but its name, its cloud, and its money, and Qatar's wire, and the EY crown made a $55 million company look like a $220 million one. The capital was the fuel. The label was the match. Natasha was not a fake human engine. She was a real tool, wrapped in a valuation the business couldn't back. And that is why the diligence wasn't declined by accident. It was declined because the label was already paying, which makes this personal for you. Because Builder.ai isn't the disease, it's patient zero. The label premium didn't die with it, and the same incentive is still in the system in every pitch deck you'll see this year. Most are honest. Some are a label doing the lifting. Brick-tikis. So here's how you tell them apart. 3 signs a company only looks like AI. 1, the revenue won't survive a restatement. Don't ask for revenue. Ask for revenue net of related parties. Sales to a partner, a sister company, a friend. Strip out the invoices that circle back home. Whatever's left is the company. Everything above it is the label. 2, the AI is a wrapper. Ask what actually runs underneath. And if the honest answer is the same models everyone else rents, you're paying a premium for a name tag. 3, the growth is funded, not earned, propped up by cheap capital and free cloud credits instead of customers. That third one is its own trap and its own story, one I'll follow next. But I promised you the honest version, so here's the part that should keep you up. The apps got built, customers got working software. Nobody was sold a machine that didn't exist. They were sold a valuation that maybe didn't. So tell me, and I mean it, put it below, is AI washing fraud, or is it just marketing with a peak? with a better lawyer. Where exactly is the line between overselling and lying, and did anyone in this story actually cross it? Because patient zero is never alone. There are companies on this map right now running the exact same play on Comcobala's Daihao. The label holding up the number, I'm not naming them yet. But Builder.ai only borrowed a label to hold up a valuation. The next one on this channel did something bolder. It borrowed against the same collateral for twice. Follow the math, not the hype.